to I Am Here. It's a podcast with two cousins, Gabriela
and Amarilis. Hey!
We are here to share stories, share love, share the healing, and we are here with our lovely friend, Vanessa.
Hey!
Hi! Follow us on all social media platforms at IAmHerePod. Send us an email and let us know what you think. Maybe even share your story at IAmHerePod@gmail.com.
And today we're talking about anxiety. Yes. So we've talked about, just touched on it a little bit of just like our different experiences with anxiety, but we wanted to go more in depth because our experiences are very different. So we're going to talk just about our own experiences again, share, maybe give some insight so people who may be struggling with it or people who know somebody who's struggling with anxiety to just have a better understanding of it. It's not that everybody experiences it exactly the same way that we do, and this is not to give you any advice on how to really deal with it, because even though Vanessa and I both work as counselors, it's very important to identify your own counselor and work with your own counselor to have something that is really specific towards the anxiety that you're dealing with.
Like, we were talking about this before we even started recording, but like I did not know that I had anxiety until college, which is kind of funny because I've had it my whole life, and I have like the generalized anxiety disorder, which I don't know how to describe. Hello, you guys are professionals. Can you guys describe it? Like in like terminology, and then I can describe it on how it feels.
Generalized anxiety, just quick brief, is where you're feeling worry, constant stress, constant fear over not something specific. It's not like a phobia where I'm scared of dogs or I'm scared of being outside. Generalized anxiety, it's more about I have a constant worry about everything. Of everything. So it's just constant stress, worry, fear, where it's impairing how you function in life, because you're just worried everything's gonna turn out wrong or something bad's gonna happen. I don't know if you want to add.
That's perfect. You did great.
Thank you.
I remember Googling it once, and I remember hearing something like it's like feeling constant dread all the time.
Yes.
It's pretty accurate. It feels like you have, like, the way that I like to describe it is a giant black cloud, like city-sized black cloud that looms over you like all the time. And at least that's how it feels. Like, I know it sounds a little bit more like depression, but it's like feeling like terrified, like looking up and seeing a giant thing that you don't even know what it is, just looming over you like all the time, feeling like it might crush you at some point. That's kind of how it feels like.
Day-to-day basis.
Yeah. For me, it felt heavy. Like I felt like I had I'm carrying, 100 pounds on me constantly. Like I literally felt tension in my shoulders and my neck all the time. And I think one thing that I do want to say about like the actual disorder, being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, it's something that's happening, for a long period of time. It's not just because everybody experiences anxiety. Like that's a normal emotion. Yeah, it's a normal emotion, and it happens when you are in fear of something, and that's normal.
You're in danger.
But and it's a natural instinct. We're supposed to feel that because that's what helps us learn to how to protect ourselves and to know that we need to protect ourselves. But when you are living in constant fear and worry, on a day-to-day basis for months at a time, yes, that is considered generalized anxiety disorder. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I think a lot of people, social media, TV, they talk about anxiety and they make it sound like one thing. And yeah, you can get upset and feel anxious, for certain situations, but it doesn't necessarily mean you suffer from generalized anxiety disorder.
It really does impair you from being able to work, to study, to sleep, to eat, to be in healthy relationships, just to do everyday
Normal
basic
functioning.
things that you need to do for your life.
And I think that's why it feels so heavy, because you are putting in so much effort to do things that just to live, just to do everyday things is very hard. But like we were saying, I literally didn't know I had it until I was in psych class, and I was just like sitting there like, oh, I was a good student, so I was trying to take notes and everything. And we got to the chapter of like, I think it was abnormal psych, like around that type of chapter, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then we got to the generalized anxiety part, and I was like telling them, I was like, oh, okay, my friend has this, so yeah, like I know, kind of know what this is. And then I'm like writing all the symptoms down, because like it's part of the chapter, and it's like excessive worry, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I just kept writing. And then it was feeling like dissociated, like everything is far away, you're like all the time for months at a time, and feeling your heart racing every day, and being terrified of everything. And I'm like writing everything down, and as I'm writing it, I saw myself in it, and I was like, oh, this isn't normal. Like, no, like,
no, it's in the abnormal psych section.
Exactly. I was like, wait, abnormal psych? This is my everyday life. Like, I thought that was like normal. And then like it was crazy, because like I would always have like anxiety attacks like in the middle of class, where I literally would have to like get up and get out and run out of class to go to the bathroom to calm down. And that happened to me like my entire life, like even when I was little. And I just assumed that, I don't even know what it was. I just thought that like, oh, I'm really scared right now. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to go to the bathroom and calm down. And like, it wasn't until that day in college that I was reading that, and I was like, oh, this isn't normal. Then talking to my friends, and then they're like, yeah, no, I don't feel any of that. And it's like, huh.
Wow.
Yeah. And then eventually it was like, okay, I'm going to go to counseling. And thank goodness I went to counseling. So that's kind of my story of how I realized that was something I was experiencing.
I think I just ignored it for so many years. And I was just like, oh, whatever. It's just a little butterflies in my stomach, or, oh, I ate something that made me feel nauseous.
These butterflies feel like pterodactyls. Like,
girl.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this?
Pterodactyl, yeah, you're not kidding. It felt like there was a monster in there.
Yeah, I was like, I'm about to. It's something like out of the Alien movie. Something's gonna burst out of my stomach.
Oh no!
It's gonna be real gross. That's how. Yeah, it's so.
It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah,
it's a horrible feeling, and I just, after I started experiencing them, I feel like I could relate to my students even more. At first, I was panicky whenever they would be panicky, because then it would trigger me, and I'm like, oh my God, I know what that feels like. I don't want you to go through that either. And so that, like, trying to help them through it, like when I was still healing, it was interesting. But now,
were you ever scared like it was gonna set yours off, because you were like, oh, I don't?
It did. It would.
Wow.
It would, because I was a guidance counselor when it was happening. There was a couple times where, like, I legit had to go for a walk around the building. Actually, a lot of times, my coworkers, luckily, I got blessed working with a great team, and a lot of them were good friends of mine. So any day I was having a bad day, I just be like, listen, I just had a moment with a student. I really need to go for a walk. And they would go and walk with me, and then I'd be okay. But oh my God,
yeah,
I don't wish that on anybody. And anytime someone says that that's not real, I want to punch them in the face, because it is real and it's scary.
When they tell you it's all in your head.
Oh man, I mean, it is technically.
Yeah, no, girl, that's all over your body.
That's the thing. But the thing is, when people say that anxiety is all in your head, it's like, okay, yeah, but it's also your brain controls your entire body.
True.
Kind of like how your heart controls like the blood flow in your entire body. If I say I have a heart problem, or if I say I have chest pain, people are going to take me seriously. Like, when you're feeling that is so terrifying, because the differences, because I have had to, in my time with wonderful anxiety. I have had to Google a lot of things, which have resulted in really bad things. You never Google your symptoms, but like, yeah, but like the one thing that was so helpful was like the difference between a heart attack and a panic attack. Because like you do have that like an intense pain in your chest sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference was that when you're having a heart attack, your instinct is just to get help and just like do it. But then versus when you're having an anxiety attack or a panic attack, your instinct is going to be like, leave me alone, everyone get away from me, I don't know what's happening. So that's like the major difference. So if someone's having a panic attack, they're going to resist help more, which was like a lot more reassuring to me, because like when I was having them, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. But then I'm like, wait, okay, if I don't want people to help me, okay, no, okay, so I'm probably not having a heart attack. Okay, cool.
Well, and I've been in instances where I've seen people having a stroke or a heart attack, and there's way more symptoms that actually happen when someone's having a heart attack, and they're not coherent. It's a lot more physical with a heart attack.
I think, and it depends too, because I know like with my uncle, he would have some heart attacks, and it was kind of the same thing, like drifting off. He didn't do all of that, but it was drifting off. Going, but for when a person is kind of experiencing, I guess before it gets to that point where you're disoriented, it may feel similar.
Oh, yeah, I'm
because
sure.
I know that's one of the symptoms too. It's like you think you're gonna die when you're having a panic attack. You think you're gonna die.
It's almost like you know you're gonna die. You're like, it's definite. Like there's no other alternative in your mind. You're not thinking I might get better. No, that's what's making you panic more, is knowing that you're not gonna get better, even though it's not true. But that's what's true to you at that moment.
Mm-hmm. And then even thinking like you're scared of getting a panic attack, because like that's you're like you become even more terrified of it happening again.
Yeah. That was the whole reason why mine started happening so often, because I had a really bad episode. My very first really bad episode, I was at Target and I thought I was going to pass out, and this lady helped me, and we ended up calling 911 right there at Target. And they came, paramedics came, they checked on me, and I was fine. I went to a clinic, they said I was fine. So they told me I had a panic attack. They're like, this is the only thing that makes sense. They thought that I was on drugs, but I definitely was not. After that made me fearful, because I was just like, I never want to go through that feeling again.
I don't want to lose control again.
Oh my god.
Lose control, yeah.
One time I had a panic attack, actually multiple times. I've had a panic attack on a roller coaster. And I blacked out because that's the thing. Like, I love roller coasters. Like, Amarilis knows this. Like, I love roller coasters, but the thing is, recently I have stopped going on them. Well, I started going
I've noticed that. Like, you got more nervous to go on roller coasters. I'm like, what happened? You used to love
Because when I was like in 9th grade, I went on a roller coaster, but the thing is, I was nervous beforehand because, like, you know, you have to do the checklist before you if you're feeling anxious, you have to do the checklist. Like, okay, am I hungry? Whatever. Like, ask yourself those questions. Right. And then I did not ask myself.
Tell me more about the checklist, because I have anxiety, but I don't have panic attacks. I have like social anxiety.
So what I do when it comes to when I start to feel my body shaking, I start to ask myself, why am I feeling this? Because even though it is anxiety, and even though I do have generalized anxiety disorder, I do know that certain things trigger it and make it worse. So if I am shaking out of nowhere, it's either because I'm super hungry, I'm super tired, or I didn't drink enough water, so I'm dehydrated, or I'm like worried about something that I don't want to think about. I'm like pushing it off to the side and I start freaking out. Or I'm sad and I'm just not addressing it. So those are like the main ones for me. I know everyone's different. So like whenever I start to freak out, immediately, it's so hard because sometimes I just start escalating and go down the hole. But like I stop and I'm like, okay, what do I need right now? Like why am I feeling like this? And I have to do it right when it begins. So when I was, we were at like, I think it was like Six Flags or something. And I was super excited because it was this one roller coaster that like it's a lot of falling, and that's like my favorite feeling, which is kind of weird because a lot of people don't like the idea of falling.
But that's the point of going on roller coasters.
That's right. I was super excited. I was like, oh, we're going to be falling almost the whole time. Okay, yeah, I'm excited for this. But the thing is, before we were, like, when we were in line, I was like, I started getting nervous, and I was like, this isn't normal, because usually when I start to get nervous, it's a lot more manageable. Either that, or like I'm able to be like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and not go on this ride this time. But this time, like, I was way too nervous, and I noticed that was weird. And then, like, looking back, I didn't realize that I was super thirsty, that I didn't drink enough water, and I was super hungry. Like, I didn't eat anything that day.
Oh, no.
So that made me
That's a bad combination.
So, girl, I was shaking, and, like, I was, like, my heart was going fast, and I was super, like, even more nervous to go on the ride than usual, and I didn't know why. And so I went on the ride, and it was the first time, like, that this type of panic attack happened, because there's, like, different types, where I'm, like, on the ride, then suddenly we're going up, and then I start to hyperventilate, but I don't realize I'm doing it. So it's, like, it's weird, because you would think that you would notice you going, like, you know, that's...
No, but you don't. This is why, like, in the moment, you're just, like, breathe. You have to, like, literally remind yourself,
yes,
breathe, slow down.
Yeah, because, like, in the movies, they have, like, the, you know, like, they have the iconic...
The paper bags?
With the paper bags. Like,
yeah.
Well, no, it's not that simple, and it makes me so mad when it's portrayed that way on TV, because it's like, no, people are not going to know.
And who carries paper bags with them everywhere?
I'm going to start doing that.
You can decorate them. You can make them bling bling and everything. We could start a trend, girl.
Oh my gosh. We got to monetize this.
Oh, we should make merch for I Am Here, but, like, paper bags that match, like, your face
mask.
Yeah, you gotta walk around as, like, you have a butterfly on your face mask, and you have a little butterfly on your hyperventilation bag. Like,
there you go.
Yeah, so, like, I, like, started going, and I had no idea, and I'm like, I'm on the way up to the ride, and then my instinct was, I gotta get off, but I was already on the ride. So
there's no getting off now.
Yeah, there's no way. I was already up there. So I started shaking, and then I didn't realize that I stopped breathing, or I was breathing too much. And then as soon as the thing went down, everything around me turned, like, black. Like, everything, slowly, like, it was like dots everywhere, and it started to, like, look very, very dark. And I knew I was passing out. But then instead, because I had heard before, like, the reason why that happens is because I'm not breathing.
You're losing oxygen to your brain.
Yeah. But instead, actually, complete side note, when I was getting my blood drawn, my brother and my dad are super, super terrified of needles, and they hate getting their blood drawn. They always faint. And I was telling the lady, and I've never fainted from that, but, like, the lady told me that the only reason why that happens is because people are so scared that they forget to breathe.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
That used to happen to me. I passed out twice when I was younger, and I have a fear of getting blood drawn because of the same thing. Yeah. And ever since I learned that all I had to do was breathe.
Yes.
I'm fine now. I can go get my blood. I mean, it's still a mission. I still hate doing it. But yeah, it's because you stop breathing, and because you're getting blood drawn and you're stopping breathing, you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain.
Yeah. And, like,
and you pass out.
It's crazy, because when I even heard that, like, you would think that would even, like, slowly start to make me feel better, like, oh, all I need to do is breathe. No, because when you tell a person with severe anxiety that, like, don't worry, you just have oxygen reduction to your brain, they're gonna be like, so I'm dying? So, like, that's when my brain goes straight to, I'm dying. So as soon as that happens, I'm like, oh my god.
I'm not breathing right. How do I breathe? How do I do this?
Yeah. So it was great. So I'm on this ride, and then, like, I knew I needed to breathe, but then I was thinking about breathing.
You're like, I forgot how.
Yeah. And
how do I do that?
I was like, okay, And then I forgot to breathe, so I was like, and I was like breathing way too much air, and I made it worse. And then everything got black, and it was so annoying because like I was still conscious, like my entire body was really like limp, but I was still conscious. So I was like experiencing the entire ride, but like I was like a noodle, and like I knew it was happening. So it was like the worst feeling, and then that was traumatizing because then afterwards, I didn't get on any roller coaster because that was super scary.
Did they have to call any paramedics or anything, or you were fine like once it stopped?
Once the ride stopped, I was fine, which is how I knew it was anxiety because like otherwise it would have just stayed completely.
And you would have needed medical attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to how you found out you had anxiety.
Well, mine was that situation at Target, like when I had the paramedics come. And I went to a clinic to get checked out. I went to multiple doctors. Were you? That was just a few years ago. So I was like, what? In my early 30s. So yeah, I didn't even I wasn't convinced even like after that happened.
Because by then you're already a counselor, like you're already working as a school counselor. You studied this, so you're like, I know what.
That was like my second or third year. It happened my second year of being a guidance counselor. It happened. Wow. And I was I really think it got triggered because I was doing that. I don't know if you remember how I lost a lot of weight. Yes, you did. And I did this really strict high protein, low carb diet. And then when I came off of it, I think my body went to shock because I started eating a lot of carbs, like a lot. It was around the holidays. So everybody's baking and I started eating, and I believe that's how it got triggered, truthfully. Amongst a whole other bunch of things that I won't get into.
You know, that actually makes sense too, because a lot of the time, like when your body is adjusting to something different, it's going to react, and sometimes it overreacts, like it freaks out. So that actually makes a lot of sense.
It legit felt like my body was freaking out because I did
But
that
like the truth is, like people think anxiety and depression is in your mind and in your brain, but it's really like in your gut, like the gut bacteria and whether your microbiome is balanced or not. So when you shift your diet, it can affect your mood big time.
I feel like it's a big combination. Like I really feel like our bodies really react to that fight, flight, or freeze. So whenever your brain sees that there's some kind of threat going on, your body's going to naturally do it without your brain even catching up to it. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what was happening with when I started having my panic attacks. My body started panicking, you know, and I thought, okay, well, this is coming from that first. So it's not I'm afraid, but truthfully, I did have a lot of fear, and I just was ignoring it and suppressing it for so many years that it exploded by that time because my body was also freaking out. So it was like both were all freaking out.
Yeah, it's like the perfect storm. Like I suppressed things for so many years, and then like the shift in your diet and your body's reaction, it was just like opening the floodgate.
It was just like that.
You and I have different definitions of perfect.
It's a scary perfect storm. So yeah, like I think that's because they kept telling me, my doctor was like, you need to get on medication to help you, and I was just like, no, I'm gonna go to endocrinologist, I'm gonna go to a urologist, I'm gonna go to all these doctors, and all of them kept pointing to the same thing. So it took me a while to actually accept that they were panic attacks. It was just one of those things where like I was convinced it was my body, there was something wrong with it, and it wasn't
like a health issue.
It was I was in my mind, and technically I think that my body was reacting to that diet, but it came from fear. It stemmed from fear.
No, it totally makes sense. It's interesting that we're talking about health things. Like I know we're talking about panic attacks, but a lot of it is like health anxiety related, because when we start to feel those physical symptoms, and
what are those physical symptoms that you experience?
Me?
Yeah.
I have some fun ones. Physical symptoms. Okay, I saw this one comic. I don't know if you know the comics with it's like the heart and the brain, and they're like talking.
Yeah, the awkward Yeti.
Yeah, the awkward Yeti. Yeah, they have really funny comics. Like, there's like one. It was like the brain is like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And then like the heart's like, here, I'll make you feel better. And it's like running on treadmill, and it's like, and then like what is it? It was like the bladder comes, it's like, hi, I'll help you too. And it's like the colon comes like, I'll help you too. And then everyone's like freaking out. And there's an eye jumping up and down, like twitching. It's like, I'll help you too. And then the brain's like, stop. And they're like all like freaking out. Is this helping? Yeah, that's how it feels. But like, I mean, in terms of symptoms that are unusual, at least for me, were the tingling sensations throughout your body. It's kind of similar to when your foot is asleep.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's not too extreme. It's just really bad because you're paying attention to it. And on top of that, the feeling of having your nerves like on edge all the time. I had such a bad like case of anxiety that I made myself go to a neurologist. And the neurologist told me that my nerves were just super in shock, like completely in shock. Because whenever he like touched me or for something, I would like jump. But it was also because like, to me, it felt like it almost not hurt, but it felt so like uncomfortable in my skin. Like it didn't feel like someone was just touching me. It was like that tingling sensation throughout my body. Or you could just be sitting down and suddenly like you start feeling a tingling on your face or something. Or
I would get like little like twitches even in my head.
Yes.
Like, or spasms. Like I would feel like muscle spasms throughout my body. Like it's so weird.
Me too. That one was really scary. Like I think
it's so weird. Yeah.
It was scary, especially like if you Google your symptoms, like if there's anything anyone takes away from this podcast episode, it's don't Google your symptoms when it comes to anxiety, because Google's gonna say that it's MS or something.
You're dying.
Yeah, that you're dying.
So tell you to call 911 and there's nothing wrong with you.
And that's even worse for people who are struggling with anxiety, because it just sets you off and catapults you into more of an anxiety attack and nervous.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have any of the symptoms that we're mentioning, please just breathe and know that you're gonna be okay.
Yes.
Because honestly, one of the reasons why I really wanted to make a podcast and talk about this is because if it weren't for the podcasts that I was listening to, and on top of that, the communities that I encountered like on the internet that were talking about health anxiety, I would still be drowning in medical bills. Like I would keep going to the doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, but like obviously like there are other symptoms of anxiety that are a lot more like common, like the shaking, like your hands shaking, your shortness of breath, which is like really important to acknowledge that it's anxiety.
Heart palpitations.
Yeah.
Those are
heart palpitations, sweating. My ex, his hands would get super sweaty. Like his whole body would just start sweating all of profusively.
Yeah.
And I've had students that their lips turn blue and chapped because they just like are not like they're getting the chills, and you get like,
your
jittery.
body's not functioning. It's like the blood is not circulating. You're not breathing properly.
No, it's like you're literally freezing. Like your body's just frozen.
Yeah.
Like it's in shock. Like you're in shock.
Yeah. Or like feeling like your body goes. Sometimes like I get super hot or I get super cold. Like my hands are completely cold. My feet get completely cold. Like feeling dizzy.
That's a big one.
Yeah, things
like you're gonna pass out. Feel like you're like lightheaded,
and like the shortness of breath really contributes to that too. It's like really important to acknowledge that that's a symptom of anxiety, especially during COVID, because there's so many people, and I can't even imagine if I can't even like imagine what people are going through that have severe anxiety during COVID, especially like severe health anxiety.
And not knowing it, not having the tools to know how to regulate it.
Yeah, they've never really knew that they had it before. I can see them
or they're setting it off.
And then if they really are fearful of COVID, it's easy to think it's because of that.
Yeah. And also, if you have asthma too, like, it's not fun, because like I would get like asthma when I was anxious because of the shortness of breath, and it's really easy to mistake that for something like COVID or something so scary that, I don't know, it feels like you're dying, which is important to know that you're not dying.
Yeah, I would get severe nausea. I never really threw up because I'm not a person that throws up easily, and I hate throwing up. I actually have a phobia of throwing up, so that made it even worse, feeling nauseous all the time. And then I would also get like tension headaches. I would get, my chest would tighten up. And I'm trying to think of what else.
Like, I don't have the same kind of anxiety. It's different. Like, I don't believe I've experienced a full-blown panic attack. I've seen it in other people, and it is very scary, like the trembling, the shaking, like the hyper ventilating, and not really being, it's almost like a constant bringing you back, because once you're a little bit grounded, the brain goes back, and it's just like, all right, they're back in another anxiety attack, and it's almost like constantly reminding to come back to this moment and slow it down. So it is very challenging. It's not just something you can just snap out of. But I know, like, for some other people, when it's not that hyper aroused, it goes into like the hypo, like, and you mentioned it earlier, dissociation, where you just check out. Your body is so like aroused and so go that the body sometimes can't handle it, and it just goes into shutdown mode. And the only way it can help protect you is by checking out.
Yeah, I actually wrote a poem about this. I always do this. I always end up reading a poem related to something. Because when I was diagnosed, it felt different. Generalized anxiety disorder. I held the shaking diagnosis between my fingers. Do you have any questions? The doctor lingers by the door. No, I lie. I stand before a vacant bathroom mirror, clutching a sink, blinking away the voices that say, it's all in your head, it's not that hard, stop being afraid. Grip tightens, the sink shatters, I don't bleed, I don't need meds, I don't need meds, I don't see my reflection, but rather the complexion of who I wish to be. She has flowers in her hair, her hands don't shake. She presses them to the glass to meet mine and says, you're gonna be fine. It's okay to break sometimes. So shatter and build me out of diamond cut pieces of nothing. And suddenly, instead of saying I don't need meds, I say I don't need them. Close my eyes and breathe again.
Wow. I know that feeling, man. Because everyone's quick fix is here. Take these meds, they'll make you feel better. Yeah. And you're just like, well, there's nothing wrong with me in that way. Like, it's something else.
Yeah.
But they don't, the doctors, they can't find anything else. So they're like, here, take these anxiety pills. And it's just like, but wait, that's not it. That's not it.
Especially like you were talking about earlier, you're going through all these medical tests and they can't find anything.
That was the most frustrating thing too, because like after every time they would tell me that, because I would go and I'll be like so excited. I'm like, oh, they had to have found something. Then as soon as they figure out what's wrong with me, then we can, get on some kind of treatment plan and I can get fixed. And then I'll never feel like this anymore. And every time they would tell me, it would just crush me so hard. And it was just like, oh, they didn't find anything wrong with me. And so the all the signs and all the arrows kept pointing anxiety. And I'm like, no, that's not what I have, but it's what I had.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because in order to accept that it's anxiety, I have to accept that it's something that I'll have to live with for a while. So like I know what you mean. Like that feeling of, oh, if this is something else, I can take the treatment and I'll be okay. But like for some reason, the idea of anxiety, even though it's the same thing, like I'll take the treatment and I'll be okay, I just never saw it like that. I was always like, oh, I have anxiety. I'm going to have to keep feeling like this and dealing with this every day.
And I think subconsciously we know that a pill's not going to fix us. Mm-hmm. So we know that if it is anxiety, we have to face it.
Yeah.
And that in itself is scary, because then that means the things that we've been trying to hold back and hide from and not deal with, that the reason why we're having these anxiety and the panic attacks is we literally have to go face to face with it. The fear that we have, the things that are stressing us out and overwhelming us, we literally have to sit with it. And I think that is probably one of the hardest parts of recovering from anxiety and recovering from panic attacks, is just learning to be okay not being okay.
Yeah.
That is like even now, like I have my moments where I get stressed out and I feel my anxiety, but I have learned that it's okay to feel those things. Like I think I was raised where, you know, you have to be happy all the time and everything has to be okay. You have to be fine. It's not okay for you to feel those feelings, but
there's no reason for you to. You're fine. You're professional. Right. You're good. You have a home. Like, what do you have to be worried about?
Exactly. That was a big thing. You have nothing to be worried about. And that would frustrate me even more too, like opening up to friends and family. They're like, what? You don't have kids? You're not married? You don't have this? You don't have that? Why are you stressed out? You have a job, you know, you have your career, you know, you have everything. And even within myself, those were judgments that I had to face against myself. Like I should be fine. Mm-hmm. And for what all the other reasons of why I couldn't be fine were just not valid. And I wasn't allowing myself to be scared. I wasn't allowing myself to say, hey, you know what? This is stressing me out. This is overwhelming me. This is too much. Like, no, I wasn't allowing myself. I had to be okay. I had to be okay with this job. I had to be okay with this relationship. I had to be okay. And that just makes you spiral out of control even more. Yeah. And for me, and this is something that I know I've learned from other people and even some of my students that I've worked with, sometimes you have to name it. Like you literally have to name to tame it. Like you have to name, I don't know if Gabi, you've experienced this through your therapy, but I actually named my anxiety. His name is Ant. He's a boy. I don't know why I made him a boy, but Ant comes out whenever, and I talk to Ant and I say hi to him. I acknowledge him. I'm not mean to him no more. And I know this doesn't sound really crazy and weird, but that's what helped me get through it. And so Ant, whenever he comes out, I've learned to say, hi, Ant. I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you doing today? What is making you so fearful? Like, what are you afraid of today? And everything's going to be okay, Ant. And you just kind of nurture your persona, whoever it is you want to call it. Some people call it a monster. Some call it, you know, anything, but mine is Ant. And Ant likes me now. So Ant doesn't come out that often, but every now and then, you know, he comes to visit. And
learn to like trust that you got his back and you're not like hiding
we're friends
or pushing him away or punishing him.
Exactly. Yeah. We're friends, we're cool, you know. And I know it sounds crazy, but someone that has chronic worry and anxiety and stuff, sometimes you just really, that's the best way to face it, because it is a little person in you, and they just need to be comforted.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And like the way that I used to think about it too, and I still do, like I write in my journal a lot, and like one of the things I had in my journal was that before mine's name is Harry. I
like Harry
because it's a very
Harry feeling.
It's like a very generic name, and like so it's not as scary. Like, and on top of that, I don't know, like before I named Harry, he was a monster because I didn't know who he was. Like we tend to like, you know, some same reason we're scared of the dark. Like it's like you're walking in the middle of the woods and then you hear a scary noise and you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? And then you're gonna think it's a monster, you're gonna label it a monster. But once you take your flashlight and look at it, you realize it was just a dog the whole time. And you're like, oh, that's nothing to worry about. That's just Molly or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I started seeing my anxiety. First, I would be so angry at it. My first thing was like, I was scared. Actually, that's not true. The first thing I was doing, I was terrified of him.
Yeah, isn't that funny? You're like scared of the feeling of being scared.
Yes, it's terrifying.
Yeah. I was scared. I was scared of Harry because I thought Harry was death and I thought Harry was gonna kill me. So the whole time I just kept seeing Harry as a monster.
Or for me, I felt like Aunt was gonna take over me. And I didn't want Aunt to take over me. Like, that's not me. I'm a brave and strong woman. Like, I don't want this scared little Aunt to take over me. Go ahead.
No, that's true. It's feeling like it feels like you're a stranger in your own body. Like it's like then I felt like I was, like you said, like I was becoming Harry. Like I'm not Gabi, I'm Harry. Like this is so scary. Harry scary. But then like once I realized that Harry wasn't a monster, then I got mad and I was like, I've been scared of you and you're not a monster and you've been wasting my time. Instead of having compassion towards Harry, I was just angry. And I went
through a little phase where I was angry at Aunt too, and I felt more of like, just shut up already. Like, just, you're getting on my nerves. Like, what is your problem? Like, get over it. Like, that's what happened with me and Aunt. Like, I didn't feel like, well, I guess, yeah, maybe I did feel like he was wasting my time. I never thought of it like that, but that's probably why I was feeling so annoyed and frustrated. Like, I was just more like, hey, just leave me alone already.
Yeah. And then another reason, then I got like very, very mad at Harry. Like I was like, okay, like not like Harry, you're the reason why I'm not normal. I would get angry. I was like, Harry,
wow.
I'm so angry because like I like would get so mad, and I still have my moments that sometimes I get angry at Harry. But like I remember specifically one time, because I was never able to have a job until I was older because I was so terrified of people. Like I was so anxious. So when I started working at Music Fest, like when I went for my first job orientation, like in the middle of the instructional video, like I got up because I was having a literal panic attack. I turned to the person next to me, which happened to be also, of course. So like, I turned to my cousin and I like turned to him and I'm like, I'll be back. I'm having a panic attack. And then I like just got up and he just looked at me like this because he didn't know what to do. And then I was like, don't worry. And like, I was like, thanks, but I'm good. And I got up and like, because I was like feeling the shaking, my body started feeling the tingling all over my face and my legs. And like the twitching was happening all throughout my arms and my cheeks. So I like my chest started hurting and I was like, I know what that means. I need to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. I was completely alone. And I remember getting so mad. Like I remember looking in the mirror and getting angry and thinking, this was even before I think I might have named Harry, my anxiety Harry at this point, but I was still seeing it as myself. So I like looked in the mirror and I was mad at myself. And I just looked in and I was like, why are you like this? Why do I have this? Why do I have to be like this? And like that's one of the reasons like I wrote that poem about like clutching the sink, because I was like, I wanted so badly to break it because I was so angry. And I just like remember hitting the sink and just crying because I was like, there are people who are up there and they're being themselves and they're normal and they're sitting there for like 3 hours and there's nothing wrong with that. Like they're sitting there, they're breathing, they know how to breathe, they know how to think, they know how to socialize and interact, and they don't ever have to feel this. I want to be like that. And I got so mad. And then that's like one of like the things that was one of the moments that I was so angry at Harry. But then eventually I don't know if this makes sense, but like I started listening to Harry, but like not listening to what he was telling me was wrong with me. I started listening to why he was feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, why are you so afraid of this? Why is this terrifying? Why? And I started asking Harry. Yeah.
One question that I would always, like, if I really couldn't figure out why, I would say, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, what part of whatever you think you might be afraid of or anxious about, like, what's the worst? And is it happening right now? Like, those were some questions that I learned to ask myself, like, okay, I'm scared that this might happen, but is that happening right now? What are you doing right now? Because I mean,
one of the questions was like, what do you think will happen if you're not here right now? Like, I don't have a cute name for my anxiety or my fear. I just be like, yo, what's up? But one of the things that I'm like is when I sit down with myself and ask that part, or like, what are you scared will happen if you're not present right now? Because it's almost a defense mechanism.
It is. It's completely a defense mechanism. That's the whole point of it. It's supposed to protect you. So when Ant starts acting up, you just have to stop and just listen. And I know, like, that sounds scary, and to all those listeners out there, you might think we're all crazy because we name our anxiety, but I mean, really, it is one of the best things that I did to overcome my panic attacks. That's one of the things that I do when I feel the start of a panic attack or feeling anxious and my brain can't stop thinking. I will journal like Gabi, and I will also talk to Ant. And I'm telling you, the moment that I give Ant just a little bit of nurturement and just some kind words, Ant gets happy and he just goes away. And it's
almost like he delivered his message and you received it. And he was just trying to deliver a message the whole time. He was trying to do his job and you wouldn't let him.
Right. And I mean, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be, worried about certain things. Another thing that I like to do is set myself a little timer when I journal, because not that I want to limit my time with journaling, but it just kind of like, for me, I don't like to write sometimes. Once I do it, I'm fine.
It becomes flooding sometimes. Like sometimes it's overwhelming.
That, and then sometimes like the act of doing it sounds boring to me, or just like, I don't feel like doing that. But if I give myself a time limit, like, hey, just give yourself 5 minutes, and all this junk that you have ruminating in your brain going around in circles, and it's giving you feelings of like, okay, Ant might come out, just set your timer for like 5-10 minutes and just everything you're feeling and thinking, just write it all out. And even if it's sloppy, it doesn't even matter, just let it all out. And oh my God, that is so healing. And it helps. And it's funny because then when you go back later on down the line and you start reading your last entries, a lot of them have similarities. And so then you can start realizing, oh wow, like this scenario or this environment makes me anxious. Maybe I should start avoiding those things, or prepare myself before I go into those environments or
deal with it, honestly, because for me, it was doing a lot of avoidance, and it was just like the message for me a lot of the times when my anxiety was not like the hyper arousal. It's more of like I shut down. That's how my anxiety manifests, where I do have like the tension in my jaw and like the tension, but I don't even notice it's happening. Almost like you're saying you can't breathe and you don't notice that. I wouldn't notice like the tension in my body, but I just shut down. I'm not speaking. I'm not doing anything. I'm gone. And it's more of like that dissociation that you were talking about, just like, I'm not even here. Like I'm daydreaming, I'm not here, I'm not listening. It's almost like Charlie Brown, when they're with the adults and it's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh no.
gone. I am gone, and I am just avoidant. And people don't know I'm dealing with anxiety. They just think I'm listening, or I was always a good student because I didn't say anything, or I was always a good girl, and because
we're
I was
quiet.
Yeah, I didn't cause any trouble.
I was
But it's just
saying,
like the anxiety of just like shutting down and being quiet. I was not facing what I needed to face. So being able to recognize, and like through time and through journaling and through therapy, being able to recognize, I'm doing this as a protection mode because I'm not setting boundaries, because I'm in situations that are not good for me, good for my spirit or good for my mind, and I'm just kind of numbing out in order to protect myself, when in reality I need to leave. I need to leave, or I need to set boundaries, or I need to cut the relationship. So sometimes it's preparing myself for it or soothing myself for it, but sometimes it's really just moving. It's like the anxiety is telling me, girl, you need to leave, and you're not leaving.
Yeah, that's the fight or flight.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I feel like there's certain environments that you can avoid and you can't avoid. So like work, sometimes work could be very triggering for me, especially with stress. I meditate before I go to work just so I can remember to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And just like you said, there's sometimes you can avoid it. And sometimes, when it comes to toxic relationships or
Could be toxic work relationships, because that's where it was mine. That's where I
get me
really
started
noticed
on
it.
that.
That's exactly where I noticed it, because it was just a while and I was just numbing out, and I was doing those morning rituals. I was doing all my coping skills.
And they don't help
I
sometimes.
was exercising. I was sleeping. I had a balanced diet. I was doing it, and I was just like, and every time I would feel good driving to work. I would feel good. The moment I step into that place, everything was like gone, and I'm like, dang, I gotta be here another 10 hours, and like everything that I did this morning is out the window.
That is true. That's happened to me too.
And that's when I was like, how long am I going to keep coping before I actually deal with the problem? And that's when I was just like, I need to prepare, because the problem is that this is not the place for me, and I'm just trying to write it through. Gabi, and for you had mentioned it was school.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm listening to you guys and I'm like feeling it, and even though I'm not like, I don't have a job, school has always been the place where I can't avoid it. Like that's where it is all the time. Every time I'm in school, chances are, in like every single college class that I've ever had, I've had to leave at some point to take a walk, to go to the bathroom, to even sometimes I've even walked out the building and I've just sat down to catch my breath, because it's been triggered somehow in school. It's just being there. That can trigger my anxiety too. And even if I've never been there before, actually, if I haven't been there before, it's even worse.
So for me, when I was in my early 20s, I used to go out and go to clubs and stuff. And I think it's funny now, because now I realize what I was doing back then, but I had anxiety back then and I just didn't know that's what it was. And anytime I would go to a club, like I would go straight to the bar. I would not even if they had my song playing, I wouldn't dance, nothing. And if my friends were there, I wouldn't even go and say hi to them. I went straight to the bar. I had to have a couple shots and get a drink, and then I'd be okay. And I literally would have to drink. And I didn't realize all those years is that I like to dance and I love music, but being around so many people and feeling like, because when you go to certain clubs, you feel like it's a meat market. I'm sorry, it's the truth. You feel like you're constantly being stared at by men or even women nowadays. But you just feel sexualized so much. And I was so uncomfortable with that. But at the same time, I was wearing my sexy outfit. I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. And I was trying to find my man of my dreams, like that's what you do when you're trying to go to the club when you're in your early 20s. You think you're gonna find them there. I don't know why. But yeah, I was going there, and it's just like I just couldn't take the feeling, the anxiety, like, and I didn't realize that's what it was until now. Now that I've had, like, finally know for sure that I suffer from panic attacks and suffer from anxiety. Now I'm like, oh my God, all those years I thought I was an alcoholic, in which I kind of was, but the reason why is because I had social anxiety.
You're running
And I
away
was
and
always
you're trying to numb it.
I was trying to numb it. And I mean, I was going through other things too, but still, like, I don't like being in social environments that I don't know anybody. Because I don't like small talk. I hate small talk. Like, I like having deep
But
conversations.
it's interesting
like
because
what
you're
we're having
talking
now.
about that, and like people, like, because there is a thing about small talk, but with social anxiety, like, people say, oh no, you're antisocial, you don't like people, and that's not the case at all.
That's not true. That's
with
not
social
true.
anxiety, I'm just terrified of being embarrassed in front of people.
Yes.
I am terrified of being embarrassed.
Or not being accepted,
Yeah.
or being different, or standing out.
Yes,
too much.
because it all brings me, it all causes a separation, and there's something different, and I'm gonna be embarrassed. Because for me, I would go. I love dancing. That's my escape. But you've been to the clubs with me. You've been to the clubs with me. And
you don't want to dance with nobody. She don't want to dance with nobody. Nobody.
No, it's like I'm in my
drag
little
her up
bubble.
one time.
Yeah, and like,
me.
Yeah, I'll dance with you. I'll dance with people I know, and I would always go with like family or close friends. But I wasn't trying to meet anybody. I was just like, and to a certain degree still do. I haven't gone in a long time because, but it's almost like this bubble around me, and it's again that same dissociation where I'm in my own little happy place and I'm dancing in it. But as long as I keep my eyes down on the floor, nobody else exists.
I don't want to look at anybody. I don't want people looking at me.
Yeah, it's almost like this magic thinking, like a little kid. Like, if somebody sees me, if I see them, then that means they see me. But if I don't see anybody, and if I keep my head down, then nobody will see me, and I can actually enjoy being me. But the moment somebody comes and talks to me, shoot, it's all gone. I'm disconnected. I'm like, nope, don't talk to me. I'm not here. You're not here. This is not real. I'm disconnected. Or I'll be like, dance with Vanessa instead. She's a good dancer.
I do the same thing you do when I go to the club. Like, I look down, and I look down, and it's funny because I don't realize I'm doing it. Or I look really intensely at the people that I'm with. And it's kind of funny because I'm like looking like this at also, and then it's probably like what's happening? But like, then I realized that it only works for a certain amount of time, because then before I know it, someone's coming up behind me, or someone's gonna come like into the circle, and then
it's natural. Like, it's natural. And you know what's funny? Like, and I noticed this. I think the last time you and I went to the club, Vanessa, of like, the whole time I'm avoiding people, and it's a social place. We go there because we want to be surrounded by people, but the anxiety also is pushing us away from actually connecting to the people we want. And then for me, I don't know if this happens for you, but for me, I would leave, whether it's a party, whether it's even like a school event or a work environment, and then I would leave disappointed. Like,
really?
I would leave disappointed because I want to connect. I actually want to meet people, but the anxiety blocks that. So I'm like, why are you upset if you didn't want anybody to talk to you? But then there's this other part that is just like, but I actually do want to connect with people and meet them, which is why I went there to begin with.
I don't feel disappointed, actually, usually when I go out and I actually do things, because I can become extroverted if I'm in the right environment, if I feel comfortable. So if I find an environment because I love salsa dancing, and I'm not afraid to connect with people in that way. So to me, that's like home. Like, if I find the right club and they have playing the right salsa music, or even rock music, like any music that I like, that to me is home. I don't care anybody else is there. I disappear. I go into the music, and I'm in music world.
Awesome.
Like, that's it. So for me, that's a happy place for me. So whenever I leave those kind of places, I'm so glad I went, because it took me probably all kinds of convincing to get me there.
Yes, girl.
So once I'm there and I have a great time, and same thing with social gatherings, like once I go and I have a great time and I feel comfortable, I leave happy and fulfilled. But there are times where I do go into certain environments and I'm just like, I gotta get the hell out of here, and I leave early, and I don't feel disappointed. It's just almost like that environment wasn't for me. So
see, like, I feel home in the music, but then when there's other people, because of the social anxiety part, when there's other people, I'm like, you're not my home. The music is my home, and that's it. So this is what my bubble is, my music, but you're not part of it. And then when I leave, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have talked to somebody.
Happens to me almost every time I go to class. Like, I go into class and like I said, I like school. I'm a nerd. I'm like in class and like the teacher's like, does anyone know this answer? And then I don't raise my hand because I don't want to embarrass myself, even though I know it's
even though you know it, you don't want attention. And the thing is, with the anxiety, with especially like social anxiety, because that's what I know.
Yeah.
I don't want any kind of attention, whether it's good or bad. Don't compliment me. Don't say, oh, like, I don't want any kind of attention, because it makes me stand out and people are going to notice something's wrong with me. You know,
or
it's
just
almost
notice me, period.
Notice me. And that's one thing I'm like, I'm invisible. Why are you, like, you're not supposed to know I'm here.
You know what's real weird though? Like, I noticed that I'm not terrified of attention if it comes from social media because I'm behind a screen. Whereas if I'm in person with someone, I'm like, don't talk to me or look at me or don't do any of that stuff. I don't know. It's like, it's a lot easier to like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because a lot of people, I mean, like, I've had a lot of clients who have anxiety too, and social anxiety in particular, but you want that connection. You are social. It's just a fear blocks you. So being able to engage through social media or video games, or even in like comic conventions where you have your costume, people become more like you almost have the permission to be yourself because people don't see you.
The whole you, the real you.
Yeah. So it's actually pretty common, which is why a lot of people don't understand, oh, why are they always on social media? Why are they always on video games? Because it's an opportunity to connect and socialize in a safe way. And we say safe because people are like, oh, there's so many dangers on the internet, but in a way that the anxiety is not as present.
So, wait, Vanessa, do you have social anxiety? Would you?
Like I said, mine is in certain situations. Okay. Anytime I get that feeling of like, I don't feel like I belong here, I don't feel like I fit in, or I feel like everybody's staring at me and judging me, that's when that's when my social anxiety starts coming out. But if I'm like around people that I'm comfortable with, I'm fine. Going to concerts. I've gone to concerts by myself. I've gone to music festivals by myself and I'm fine. Like, yeah, I feel a little like, I wish someone was here with me. Mm-hmm. But once the music comes on, I don't care. Like, I just go into another world. I go to the movies by myself. I've traveled to different places by myself.
And I've done all those things. But for you, it sounds different than what I would experience because it goes back to how it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it really is.
I've gone to concerts by myself. I go to the movies now by myself very comfortably. At first I didn't. And going to just like carnivals, going to these things by myself because I didn't have anybody to go with me.
Or Disney. I've been to Disney by myself.
I've been to Universal Studios by myself. But this is a thing, like, it was forced. And the whole time I was not having fun. Like the whole time I'm like, you gotta do it, like pushing through. But I'm like, I'm nervous and I'm scared and I'm just faking it. I'm faking it the whole time and I'm tense the whole time. And this is how bad my anxiety is. Like my anxiety, like I know I'm anxious. And I know it's going to bring more attention to me if I act weird. So I just pretend like I'm not anxious.
Don't act weird.
Yeah, I'm just going to pretend like this is normal and I'm okay. But inside, I'm like, all of the adrenaline is going and everything's telling me to get out. But outside, I'm faking it so I don't draw more attention to myself. I don't want to be the anxious person.
I know what you mean, though, because I remember when I went to Disney the first time by myself, I never been to Disney by myself. So I was just like, how do you do this? Like, this is supposed to be a
Like
fun
everybody's
time with
watching me, whereas everybody's doing their own thing.
Yes, I felt like every time I was in line for a ride, people kept staring at me, and they were probably just looking at me. They didn't know I was by myself, but you get in your head and you're
And
just
going
like,
to the
everybody's,
movies, like that, like walking in was the scariest thing. I was like, walking in,
yes,
everybody's
giving
gonna
the
know I'm
guy
by
the
myself.
ticket and
I'm
you're
a
by
loser.
yourself.
Like all these things. Once the lights went down, I could just go and watch the movie, and I was like, oh, nobody cares. Nobody can see me because it's dark. But then walking out, anxiety came right back. It's just like, oh, everybody's gonna know. Everybody's gonna.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But for me with Disney, I will say that it's one of those things where it was like throughout the time, the more and more I just kind of accepted it and kept letting all my thoughts like, okay, yeah, this is weird. Okay, like never thought I'd go to Disney by myself. This is strange. Not everybody does this. But the more I kept listening and just like letting myself feel those feelings, the more I felt okay with just enjoying my own company. Like, why not? Like, it's a fun place. Like, even if I'm there by myself, like I could still enjoy the moment, It's scary at first and you feel like everybody's watching you, but nobody really cares.
That's funny.
Like they really
it was
don't.
such a journey to try to do those things by myself because I was like, I'm missing out on life by hiding.
Yes.
So I really had
other people.
Waiting for other people to show up to magically come at my door, because when I go out to social events, I'm like, no. So how the heck am I going to meet people, right? But they're going to magically appear someday and we're going to be best friends.
Right.
But so, like, I had to motivate myself to do these things by myself. And years of doing it, I got to that point with the movies, like going to the movies and I'm like, I just want to go by myself. And then it's almost the same amount of work to allow people in with me in those moments. So it's almost like now having the anxiety of somebody going with me, because it's, like it's still there. It's just now a different phase of I have to be vulnerable and okay that not everybody's going in front of me, and that being embarrassed is natural, but I don't have to be scared of messing up in front of other people. I don't have to be perfect, which is another like way anxiety can manifest itself, and just I have to be perfect. I can't mess up. If I mess up, I would run away and be like, oh, relationship's over.
I just want to say, like, one big thing that also helped me with anxiety was realizing that these thoughts that pop in our minds that are just scaring the crap out of us, they're just thoughts.
Yes.
They're not facts. They're just thoughts. And we get all kinds of weird thoughts that pop up in our minds, and people don't talk about it. And I'm sure there's so many other people that go through what we're going through, but the more you keep telling yourself, it's just a thought. Thoughts can't hurt me.
Yeah. And giving that thought some time, because it's just
Yes.
a thought and it's coming from somewhere. But it's the meaning that we give. You're thinking of the song, aren't you?
I am.
Just a thought, just a thought, just a thought.
Just a thought.
That song, that was when I was hitting some of my peak panic attacks, and I used to watch Steven Universe all the time. And that song literally healed me. Like, that song, anytime I would start about to have a panic attack, I would start singing that song and it healed me.
Oh, Rebecca Sugar, thank you.
She's so awesome. I'm so sad that they canceled the show, or she ended it, whatever she decided to do, but it's so amazing. And Amarilis, for your clients and stuff, the last they did a Steven Future, what is it, the last season that she did of like Steven as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
You need to watch that, because there's some awesome, like, I feel like that show, every time I watched an episode, it was like what I was going through. So
also put me on that. I'm still like in the first season. I'm trying to catch up. He's like, you have to watch it. But that song has helped a lot of people, like with my clients too. And then they shared it with their psychiatrist.
Yes.
It's been really helpful for a lot of people.
So cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being on this impromptu episode.
No problem. It was
Share
perfect.
your story again.
No problem.
Before you gotta go, let's do our gratitudes. What are you grateful for?
No problem.
Before you gotta go, let's do our gratitudes. What are you grateful for?
I'm thankful for that Steven Universe song. I almost said I Am Here. That's not the name of the song. Here Comes a Thought.
Here comes a thought.
I am thankful, I'm grateful for Here Comes a Thought from Steven Universe. It's a beautiful song. And if you haven't heard it, please listen to it. It's so good.
Yes.
I am thankful for healing and the fact that we can now talk about it, to be able to know we can be in community and not be scared to talk about anxiety.
Yes. For me, that's healing in itself. Like just talking and hearing other people's stories and sharing stories with others, like it does wonders. So for me, my gratitude for today would definitely be therapy.
Yes.
I know that, I may get judged by my family, or some people think like, oh my gosh, she's been in therapy for on and off for all her life or whatever, but it's what kept me alive. It's what's keeping me going. And I don't care if I have to go every day for the rest of my life. Like, it's one of those things where if you don't try to better yourself and seek help when you can't handle it on your own, then you're just going to live in misery. So why live like that? You might as well at least find someone that you can share your most inner thoughts and things that you've gone through and have a non-objective person to listen. Mm-hmm. So if it weren't for therapy, I don't think I'd be here. I really don't. So I'm totally grateful for my profession. I'm totally grateful for my experiences through therapy and all my wonderful counselors that I've been blessed with.
Knowing like it's always layers, like
yes.
So many layers of, you go through one counselor to learn skills, and you take a time and you go and live life, and then you realize, oh, I need more help with this area.
Yes.
And then it gets to the point where like now we can actually see the root causes of why, and not have to experience the same triggers, like before we were coping with it, now I can understand why the trigger started to begin with, and
yes,
deal with that. So there's different layers.
For sure.
So awesome. We're so thankful, so thankful that Vanessa, you showed up and you stayed on here. You shared everything.
I did.
Yes.
This was nice. I like you a lot. You're cool.
No, I like you.
We're just gonna have to invite Vanessa over more. She's just gonna be like one of those guests that you're gonna keep seeing over and over and over.
Yeah, I don't mind. This is fun. I remember when you first were telling me about this, and I was like, oh my God, Amarilis, this is gonna be awesome. I really hope you do this. Include me. And time happens and life happens, but I'm glad that I'm able to participate. I'm in a good place now, and I feel like it's the right time. So yeah, anytime, just invite me. If I'm able to, I'll join.
Yeah. Please appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate all the listeners being here. And we're so glad that you are here.
And we are here with you.